Good morning. Good morning. Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. Beautiful morning. A few things to talk to you folks about. And one is, are you prepared? Do you have your measures in place? Talking about, it's been for months. Actually, I think since last year that we've been talking about the looming coming in recession. And for those of us probably in our 40s, we've been here before. We've been around recessions. We've had it happen before, the Great Recession. And we need to look at some of the economic things that happen when there is a recession because we've been in one before, at least I have. And when you have a recession come about for those 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, at least in my job where I work at, I see a lot of younger nurses making decisions that they end up regretting. They get emotional about their job, their position, they don't like it. And the effects of this world where everything's got to be palatable, everything's got to be equal, everyone needs to be respected at some level, and everyone has this leveling the playing field for all things high and low. When it comes to the realities that you have to go to work, you have to perform, you have to endure a job, and however good it's bad, whatever you can afford, people default back to that. I don't want to say probably misaligned mentality that I'm supposed to have more than I deserve. Had an interesting conversation because I've worked in union and non-union states. And my wife wasn't even aware that we actually live in a non-union state, where in union states you have your union organization that is, making agreements for raises for you and other benefits, co-pays that can affect how much you pay depending on this. And that really, the benefit structure that is laid out that a union settles in for, while most nurses or employees think that that is an active win for them, it really isn't. It's really for the retiring people, because what most of the active workers do not know, most of the young workers do not know, is that when labor contracts are settled, the mainstay argument that labor unions are working with corporations are the 401k and whatever benefits are due to the retirees. The the current workers, they get the benefit of hearing, we got a 2% raise, 3% raise, 4% raise, 10% raise. Okay, why not put that number up that high? And those cookies that are dropped in front of them are to take away from their greater attention that the primary fight is basically on keeping the union's power and satisfying the retirees that going out. It's kind of like we want to make sure the old warriors are taken care of, which is fine. They put in the time, they should get the win. I see nothing wrong with that. But when you're in non-union states, you have to understand that you could be and that's where I'm at having a problem, because as a business owner, I understand what it's like to be a high performer. When I go into a workforce, I still am a high performer. One of the mistakes a person such as myself could make is not conforming to the business environment when I'm in there, because in my outside of that job, I'm an actual boss. I actually pay people. People have to kind of, move to where, if I want an initiative done, they got to do it or they get fired. It's an absolute authority that I have within the business to make decisions, and I don't have to answer to someone else. So there's a polarism. I'm like two-faced, and that there's a side of me that has to be a little bit softer, and there's a gangster side that is like, okay, we're going to get this done, we're going to move at this pace, and I don't have to worry about coworkers, people's emotional imbalances. I don't have to worry about who doesn't like who this day or what problems people don't have. The productivity will be adjusted to my liking. I have processes and put in place. But when you are a level worker, you work for a corporation or a company, you have to really concentrate on what your performance metrics are. And again, this is going back to being in non-union states. You have to go and talk to them about your performance and your performance metrics. Sorry, it's still, a little bit of allergy season out here, so there is a little bit of latent sniffles here and there So when you're in a non-union state, I'm coming up onto a year of being in this position. Now, this job that I have, you might ask, Phil, why this job? Why'd you get this job if you're being successful? Well, the paying for benefits for 4 years of paying for insurance, and I have a younger child, it starts to siphon away money that is it's catapulting. You're paying for insurance that's $1,300 a month for a family of four. Your wife had, well, family. No, there's five of us. Sorry, family of four, and then you become a family of five, and the next thing you know, you got to pay these out-of-pocket deductibles, these copay insurances. They start to elevate up, and you start to see that you're really hemorrhaging money. Now, that doesn't mean that because I've got benefits that's a help, but you got to think about it. I have another six-figure income that I don't have to hold benefits into account for. Now, the smart thing that I did is that I wrote off my benefits insurance because the insurance was covering myself and the people who are liable to being affected by my business because I was paying privately out of pocket. So when you're in a corporate environment, you now have to adjust. And now I'm getting benefits covered, although my time is being taken. In the words of Kevin McLemore, I'm trading my hours for dollars, but it's what was required because the dollars that I needed to keep are greater than the dollars that I was paying to get the benefits and stay at home. Now I'm not it, because I'm keeping more by going into work and trading in those hours. The hours actually are worth more. The hours are worth more for this worth more than the same amount of money I was paying when I was working as a solo entrepreneur and having to pay for my health insurance. Because the business is up to a point where it's self-running, it's self-sustaining, it has an equilibrium. But now I created another revenue stream by having this job because I don't need to be in my business working on my business day in and day out, making sure the business is there. And that's where a business owner might run a second business or start up another company. That's what business owners tend to do. I chose to go back into nursing because it was easy to address the immediate problem. Remember, I had torn my Achilles too. So I didn't make this move while I was on my top like now. I made this move because I was injured and I would not make it back to my primary source of employment, the other nursing job I had. I couldn't make it back in time when I needed to be back because I wasn't healed yet. This is what I was talking to my daughter about, a plan B. Not the birth control plan, but plan B as in you have a plan A and you need to move to plan B and you need to move quickly. So now in a corporate environment, I'm looking at the way the world's going, the recession, the coming actual recession where everybody can admit that we're in one, where we see the Feds cut rates. So let's talk about that. When we're in a recession and money is not being lended. Again, I'm not an economist, but I'm looking at from my standpoint, not the white hats and the people on the news talking. I'm talking about the middle American person who is looking to get up into the upper levels of society. And I'm in the middle class, upper, whatever middle class. You could even say lower upper class. You could make that argument, but I don't really care. But in my journey to try to get to those upper echelons, when a recession hits, before a recession, things are good. Prices are going up. The interest rates were low. And now interest rates need to go up because now the prices have gone up, right? Now we're experiencing inflation, something I've not experienced in the same measure that we're experiencing now. But you have to be aware, young people, you're in your 20s, even younger, even my children who might listen to this video once upon a time later. See this lane over here? When you're on traffic and cars are coming in, you need to get your ass over like I did, into the left lane to allow cars to merge. Any dumbass that's sitting here, staying in the right lane while cars are coming to merge, and you have room like I did, that is the ultimate stupidest move, and you're an asshole on the highway, because now the cars have to fight merging and spatialing distancing themselves while driving at speeds of over 50 miles an hour because you just won't get your ass over into the left lane. Driving tips 101. So when you see a recession come in, and that is when a recession happens, people are not having enough money to spend on excess things. That means if you look at an economy, people aren't going to Burger King as frequent. We don't order out as much. We actually cook our food more. People are spending less and less money. People are losing jobs or quitting jobs. So you might look at that, hey, that means more for me. No, it just, you're talking about the whole. That's like you feeding your family, and every time at dinner you take away one portion of food. One another item, another item, another item. Now everybody's eating a bean, right? That's when you're recessing. There's not availability of the food. Let's say when you're not in a recession and everybody's got a full plate of food and they have everything that they want and like. So when when economies like that, you have companies, corporations losing money. And also, don't forget, America is borrowing constantly. That's where we're in 40, what is it, 41, 20, $43 trillion worth of debt. Because again, you have every program, Social Security, welfare, WIC, any government assistance, like, my cousin Alexis talked about. They were looking for government, the handouts. The government has to borrow because we're not producing and making a product. They were not making, tractor trailers from America. When you look at most of the things that you wear, they're imported from another country. We're bringing them from somewhere else to here. And we have to pay them not only for that product, we got to pay them for shipping and everything else, just like you pay. And then those people have to get that here, and then they have to sell it to us for a price that gives them a profit. So when you look at that, and then people are not buying everything from extra groceries at Walmart down to whatever you can get at CVS, to gas, to food, to even now housing. The economy is losing money because people are not spending money. People tend to save money. People will cook more food at home. They won't go out to eat. You will see the things people do start to take down. Remember that plate of food. And when that happens now, people are not going to borrow money from the banks like the government does, because we're looking at, well, I don't want to borrow this now because I don't want to have that loan. I'm not making as much money. If you can't make enough money to afford a loan, most people won't get that loan. Well, most common sense people. So what you got to think about doing, when I say are you prepared, is that before this time happens, because you have to now understand, which I understood a long time ago, recessions are cyclical. They happen every so often, in their intervals of recessions. Now, it was great when everybody was buying homes, because before, in 2005, 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, and before 2008, they had zero down. People were buying homes all over the place. They were getting tons of equity. Housing prices were shooting up just like they did the previous 2020, 2019, 2021, 2022. I've seen this before. Now, I've had people telling me you should buy a home now, because again, what ends up happening is you start seeing these prices going up and you're like, let me get a slice of that pie. Because if I buy this house and the price goes up, then I can get the equity that's involved with it. But again, houses were never meant to be this quick flip. Now look over here. To the right, there are no cars coming. There's no need for me to get over because there are no cars in this lane. So I can stay my ass in the right lane, and I don't have to worry about getting over for merging cars. That's the one time you stay in the right lane, when a car is not going to merge into the, or come onto the interstate. Pisses me off all the time. So when you're looking at the prices going up, houses were meant, people normally stayed in homes 20, 30 years, and no one was flipping homes until it became this new fad. Everybody became a home flipper. In the 90s, 80s, people weren't flipping homes, they were living in them. And the reason why it was sold to the masses as this thing to do, become an investor and flipper, is because when things start to become, you start seeing something happen, something becomes present, like being a house flipper. You had corporations doing it, then they made it so every man can do it. If you think about it, that was probably promoted by banks, because when you only have companies doing it, it doesn't grow housing, because not everybody's buying a home if they're going to stay in a home for 20, 30 years. There's only so many homes, and there's only so many people that can buy a home. So you have a lower volume of a product being sold. Well, now if you incentivize people to become home flippers and you can get rich, it's a long-term get rich quick scheme. And the banks wanted you to do it because guess what? You now have the ability. So now what I do is I slow down so my man can get over, but he's going to just either speed up or get the ass out the way. So the proper thing for me to do was to slow down so that this Cadillac over here could get over in another merging situation. But he just sped up, which is what he should have did. So the banks would do it because if you have people wanting to flip in rehab homes, you now can offer what? Loans. You can now build up interest. And that's what the banks did. And the reason why we had a big housing market, because what did they do? People started getting mortgages, they started buying homes, they started getting loans, they started getting second mortgages, and then the banks started doing what? They started doing derivatives. This is back in the 2000s that started happening. Little history lesson. Because again, you don't understand, the banks are incentivized to having you in debt for a longer time. You have a mortgage, we'll give you a second mortgage. And again, the banks ended up pretty much seeing themselves in a good position to say, hey, if we fail, we'll take the country with us. And at that time, there was pretty much a game of chicken. Because the politicians at that time, they should have let the banks fail. We had that before. That was the Great Depression. They let the banks fail. And the banks that went out of business, that had bad loans, they were gobbled up by the banks who had good financial standings, and it deterred lending like it had been in the 2000s. It deterred that from happening for literally almost 100 years. But because we were prepped with this taste for that, and the politicians probably engaged in it too, they probably saw the benefits from having people start to invest, because not only that, their home prices went up, their investments went up. And if their investments are going up, they're making more money, they're incentivized by winning. Now, morally, probably this is all wrong. Morally, this is probably unethical. Morally, this is probably an amoral stance to take, because politicians should be ethical in their dealings, and they're doing things in the good for the American people. But sometimes they're doing it for the good of everyone else, but they're motivated for their own self, their own needs, their own greed. And what ends up happening is everyone starts selling, becoming flippers. Everyone's taking out more mortgages. There's more free flowing of money. And then people start not being able to pay in on those debts. We get into a way where now people can start leveraging their credit, getting more mortgages. And now you get into a situation where debt is ballooning up. So now you move to now where we just keep on borrowing. We keep on getting into debt, and no one spends their time saving money. So the banks needed to get bailed out. They bailed them out. And then they started doing what we call quantitative easing, where they started lowering the interest rates. Rates started coming down to almost zero, and now it's easy for everyone to borrow money. Now, everyone borrowing money is not just mom and pop America. It's every business. It's every politician, because don't forget, they're buying homes too. They're making investments. So now we're lawmakers making policy, making it easier for us to buy, to borrow and buy. That's why you had those Panama Papers come up, where you had all these people putting their money offshore because, again, it was easy to create corporations, have them buy, go out, get all this money, borrow all this money, then go into bankruptcy because the money was moved over to offshore accounts. So again, you, the American people, you fund their elitism. You're funding their wealth. So my whole thing is bringing it back to now. Now we're at the fully in the tip of seeing this happen. Because now we had in 2008, it's less than 20 years, and we're probably already in a recession, and it becomes more gradual as it comes along. So my thing to the listener is, while you understand this story, you might be listening to this, you will see this repeat itself again in your lifetime. My whole thing is this, is that you have to do some things to take measures against this. One, you cannot get caught up in the FOMO mentality where everyone was just buy a home, buy a home, buy a home. When you see a massive amount of people moving in this wave, everyone's buying a home. It's home buying fever. If you're not financially in that spot, which I wasn't, I had money saved, but I had a new child. I just got injured. My business was growing up. You don't make moves when the current is flowing fast. When you're in a fast flowing current and everybody's doing something, you need to slow down and wait for the rush to go by you. You need to make sure that you're not in the herd, following the herd, and you can see clearly. The other thing is that while that is happening, you have to start making sure you're building up emergency reserves. And once you build up the emergency reserves, you have to build up a second and or third emergency reserve savings. You need a war chest of savings that you can call upon, not only for a job loss, not only for anything that happens, even for the slightest injury, so your lifestyle can be unaffected. If you lose a job, because don't forget, every time there's a recession, there's layoffs. You need to be able to be comfortable where you don't need to take on a job and employment that you are not happy with. That's the other thing emergency funds are not talked about. It's always if you lose a job, but you need to be able to have enough emergency funds saved to get the job that you want and you can leverage to, which means you could cover health insurance costs. You're not going to be able to have to rush to make a decision. Again, you have to remove the FOMO, fear of missing out of your life so you can make decisions from a position of authority. The more you do that, the better off you'll be. We're in Philly now, if anybody wants to know. You got to make sure that you have money saved up. Now, when the recession comes, you need to make sure that you're not catching a falling knife and you're going to come in and say, now I've got enough money. I got everything Phil said. I'm now in a position of power. And now I can go ahead and start buying and getting a loan. But now you're catching a falling knife. You need to wait until the dust is settled so you can look at when you're going to make a strategic purchase. But again, it all starts when you do it from a position of power. These are little things that you should do, but realistically, the story I'm telling you about what happened in history, you got to pay attention because history repeats itself. And that's all I have for today, folks. Philip Davis, Ancestry Lands, AncestryLands.com. Don't forget, folks, you can support me by going to get my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing. We're over in Schuylkill Yards here, folks, by the Schuylkill River. It's available on Amazon. The link is in the description section below. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below if you found this to be, what was your view? What did you agree with? What did you disagree with, folks? Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, and I'm out. Peace.